it's Debbie. Welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Today is week 3 of the One Tag 8 Ways project that I'm working on. And so the idea behind the project is to take a single tag from a digital kit, and I'm using this one, and create 8 different tags done in different ways. The first week we did sort of tag on tag layering, one where my base tag is on the bottom and one where it's on the top. And so these are the first 2 from week 1. Week 2 was deconstructing, taking the tag, cutting or ripping it apart to create different pieces, and then adding other pieces from kits to create a little bit of a collage in the background, layers and layers, and then these 2 top pieces have just a little bit of medium on them, rock candy Crackle Paste from Tim Holtz from Ranger. Okay, so today, I think last time I said last week was the last week I would be focusing sort of strictly on paper. And so today what I'm going to do is start, I did introduce the rock candy last week, playing with that just to give a little bit more texture and depth to your piece. But this week I'm going to focus on more mixed media to incorporate into the tag. These are chipboard tags from Prima Marketing. They actually have a sticky front, so they have a little paper layer that you pull off. I don't trust the sticky. I don't feel like it's sticky enough. And a lot of times I want to start a base with gesso instead of putting paper on top. But I have found that if I pull off that sticky paper and just put a layer of gesso, it doesn't matter whether it's black, white, or clear, that destigmatizes it. I don't even know, that's not a word. It makes it not sticky anymore. And then I've got my base ready to go. So I don't do any kind of pre-treating or anything. I just pull that paper off and throw my gesso on top. And in this case, I've glued down a tag, and I used 3-in-1 Fabri-Tac. I did not trust the sticky underneath for it to be sturdy enough for all of the different things that I want to do to this. So that's what I've done. The other issue I had with these 2 chipboard tags was they weren't quite big enough. If you look at the tag printed at 100%, this is wider and taller. And so what I did was I printed my tags at, believe I did one of them at 120% and one of them at 115%. And you'll see why in a minute that the smaller one doesn't work. So it's not a correct, it's not a dead-on ratio, but in this case, I just took off a little bit of the bottom of the tag. No problem. And I'm a hair shy. You can see there's a little tiny strip down there. I'm a hair shy of it being wide enough, but that won't matter because that's going to get ink and stuff on it, so that's not a big deal. Okay, so let's start with this one. So what I've done, as I said, is I just took the tag, printed it out bigger, glued it on. And now before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit of sanding around the edge of this tag and hitting these corners. I'm going to do it over my trash can, so I'll be right back. Okay. Got my edges sanded down a little bit, and already this edge doesn't it doesn't matter. So I've already got it blended in just a little bit. Next thing I'm going to do, in this one, I'm going to cover this whole, I'm going to put a blanket of texture paste through a stencil. This is Tim Holtz stencil, and it's the Flourish. It's let's see if I can see this number. THS032. It's one of my favorites. It's been around for a while. And so I'm going to put just a layer of texture paste through the stencil. But I don't want, this is an opaque texture paste. This is actually from Ranger. And I don't want it to be white. So I'm going to color my texture paste first with a little bit, I think I'm going to use ochre. This is a liquid acrylic from Prima Marketing, and it's ochre is the color. So what I'm going to do is just get my dirty table here, get one of my palette knives, and I could do this on my glass mat, but this is just less cleanup, although my glass mat is ridiculously dirty right now. So I'm just going to put a couple drops on that and stir it around with my palette knife. And I can just mix this. I can mix this with just about anything. I can use acrylic paint. I can use mica powders. I can use, in this case, is liquid acrylic. I could use ink even. I mean, you really can mix this texture paste with just about any colorant that you have or that you want to use. Now that's a little meh. I'm going to go a little darker with that. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple more drops in. So now I'm just going to get that out of my way. This stencil is not quite the full width of the tag, but that's okay because I'm not going to go full bore on this. Basically what I'm going to do is take my texture paste and just pick some spots to kind of go through. So I'm just gonna try to kind of blend it out to the edge. And I mixed way more than I'm gonna need, but that's okay. I'd always rather have too much than not enough. And kind of want to push down while you're spreading this. If I can get there we go. All right. Okay. I think that's good enough. I need to get a wipey out. Now I made a huge mess. I have black gesso all over my hands and everything else. Okay, let's pull that off. And I got a little bit of bleed there, but that's okay. And then this can go right into some water here in just a minute. And so already you can tell that I have created, I have this color that I think goes pretty well with what's going on in the background. And I have this color all over the front of it. So I'm gonna set this aside and let this dry. And I'm not gonna do anything to it until it is completely dry. And then we'll go in and place a little bit more with that. So let's set that one aside. Now on this next one, what I'm going to do is I started with black gesso, and it's on here sloppy. If you see streak marks or whatever, that's fine. On this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my medium down first, and then I'm going to add the tag later, or parts of the tag perhaps, don't know yet. But what I wanna do is I wanna put I wanna sort of put some side rails on here. But in this case, let me, hang on one second. I need to get a different texture out. In this case, what I want to do is I want to put this on here with Crackle Paste. Now my full Crackle Paste is, it's texture paste from Prima Marketing, Art Extravagance, and it's white crackle. So same thing, I'm gonna have a color here. In this case, I'm not gonna color it beforehand, so I'm gonna be putting white on top of the black. Not a problem at all. That's actually gonna work out just fine because I'm gonna come back in and put some color on top after this crackle dries. So I want an edge. Let's see, how do I want to do this so that I can kind of, This particular stencil, this is ephemera stencil. This is one of the newer ones, not brand new, just newer. And I'm doing black on top of my black media mat, and so I can't see the edge of my, here's a piece of scrap. I can't see the edge of my tag through the stencil. There we go, that's better. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is put this right on the edge, if I can kind of get my act together here, figure out the best way to get the angle, there we go. And line that up as best I can. And if it's not perfectly straight, that's okay. And so now what I'm gonna do with my Crackle Paste, I'm gonna push through the stencil just on this edge. I am worried about the fact that I'm almost out of Crackle Paste, but otherwise I'm not worried about this being sloppy, because I think that's just gonna add to the overall look of it. So I'm just gonna rub that around a little bit. Okay, next step is to let both of these sit and dry. Here we go. My messy one and my only slightly neater one. And this, I kind of messed this up right here. That's okay, because that's probably where I will put, something will go over that, so that'll get covered up. I'm a firm believer in not worrying about your mistakes. They're natural, they're normal, they're a part of the process. And I don't even call them mistakes, and oftentimes it's more like happy accidents. And I also believe that there is nothing wrong with, covering stuff up, covering up your those boo-boos or those happy accidents, if you will. Okay, so these need to dry. I'm gonna let them sit and dry, and I will be back once they are dry. This one I'm going to put another coat of black gesso on top of, so that I can get some other color on there. And this one I'll be able to start really putting the tag together. So this one will be a little quicker to do. This one just has an extra step involved. So I will be back. It'll be like the video will blip and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Let me show you what I've done. So my texture paste is dry on both of these now, and this turned into this is just pretty. It's a pretty ochre color, or dried mustard almost. So I really like the way that turned out. And then this actually still has a little wet spot right here where I had to go back over it. But once the Crackle Paste dried, I just took my fingers and rubbed over it just a little bit to rub off anything that was loose and to give it just even a little bit more of a worn look. And then I took my tag and ripped it sort of where that will fit in there, and just inked around the edges and then glued that down in the middle. So we're gonna have a little more fun with that tag as soon as that dries. So let me set that aside. I also inked around the edges. So now you can see where I sanded it and where my little tiny strip was that didn't quite meet up with the edge of the chipboard is now blended in just a little bit better. So, yeah. I'm going to finish this, and I'm going to finish this in one of the most simple ways to do it. One thing that I haven't really used, have I, on any of these tags other than cheesecloth is fabric or lace, and I love adding little touches of lace, especially vintage laces, buttons, things like that. And so I'm going to finish this off, and I've got some pieces up here that I've been playing with. This is really old. But this was the top of sort of like a sample piece of lace, where this was on, and then I got the bottom half of it too. But anyway, I just pulled that top half off because I liked the little ring here. And so I'm gonna just set this, I'm actually gonna set that at a little bit of an angle. And I'm going to use, let's use Fabri-Tac here. I'm just gonna glue the paper on this part here. I've got more pieces that I'm gonna layer on top, but I'm just gonna glue that paper part. And maybe put it at a little bit of an angle, about like that. Oh, that's too much. Hang on, I don't want that much falling over the edge. There we go. Let's do that. Let's do that. Oops. Well, I just moved it all around, didn't I? Okay. And I got a little bit hanging off the edge, but not a lot. And I've got black gesso all over me. And then this was another piece of it. I think this actually went maybe up here, but I'm gonna put it down here. Because remember, I had that little goober part there with the spreading the texture paste underneath my stencil. And so I kind of wanted to use that space to cover stuff up. And so this is perfect, just these little pieces here. And then I've got another piece. This is just a tiny corner of a piece. Same thing. I thought it'd be kind of fun to put that there where it sort of separates those two pieces of, it's a kind of a pale blue / tealy blue. I don't know if it's coming across as the right color. It's Tiffany. It's kind of a Tiffany blue. And that tag back there, and I think it adds just a nice little tiny touch of color to this. Again, the tag I'm using for One Tag 8 Ways is a very neutral colors, and so I've got a lot of, most of the tags have been pretty, you know, rust, neutral colors. I've got one that was a little blue, but all right, I'm just gonna stick that down there. And then the last piece on this that I wanna add here is, this is a vintage button. It was one of those buttons, it's metal. It's kind of I think it's an upholstery button. And it has a texture in it. Let me see if I can get it up close. There you go. It has a texture in it, very similar in sort of with that texture back there. It's a little more gray, but I thought that'd be cute there. But on this piece, I'm going to fix this with matte gel medium. It's this heavy gel medium. It's actually super heavy gel medium. And so I'm just gonna take a little bit, and this stuff dries pretty fast. There are a lot of brands out there, but this one is Liquitex, and I'm just gonna drop that right on there. Squish it down, clean up my stuff that I got too much on. I always do that. Clean that up just a tiny bit. And it does dry clear. So that ought to work. Got a piece of very grungy sari silk here, so grungy it's like almost crispy, that I'm actually, this time around, I'm not gonna poke my hole all the way through. What I'm gonna do is staple this. If I can find it, there it is. I'm just gonna staple this piece of sari up here on the top. There, I got 4 staples up there. That's kind of fun. And so when what I'll do is put a backing on this, and that'll cover up my staple pieces, and it'll cover up the other side of this hole. And a lot of times when I do that, when I'm covering a pre-drill hole like this, I'll fill just a tiny bit of matte gel medium, perhaps. Well, I've got it out right here. Let me just tap a little tiny bit in there, and that'll just help fill that hole so it's not easy to tear or rip. Just do that. And once that dries, I won't do anything to the back here until that becomes completely dry. So this is almost like, you know, plastering a hole on your wall before you paint it. That kind of thing. Kind of like that. Okay, so that's that one. And I think it's done. I love the simplicity of it. There's a little going on, but it's not obnoxious. But yet there's just all of this movement and activity here with the stencil in the background. So I'm happy with that one. And I think it looks different enough from the rest of them. All right, this one, those of you who've watched me for a while know that that is still wet. I'm gonna hit this with the dryer for just a quick moment. You know how much I love my wax paste. So I'm going to put some wax paste on here. Don't know yet which one I'm going to use. I'm back making a bit of a mess. I started to go over this with a color wax, a burgundy, and I just didn't love it. So I got out the Metallique, what is it? Bronze Age. A little bit more of a brown tone. And I really like now this subtle in the background. And you can tell what I did is I just went over my burgundy with some black gesso, and there's a little tiny spot right there that's not dry yet. Okay, and then on top of that, what I want to do is I want to add, oh, I see a little spot there that I feel like I need to get. There we go. It was just a little tiny black spot that didn't have any wax on it. It looked kind of funny. There we go. That's better. And now what I want to do is adjust. I think I want to add a little bit of patina to this. I've done that on other tags in the series. No, I just did it once on the bird, but I just really feel like this one is going to benefit from just a tiny, tiny bit of patina. And I'm just going to put a little here and a very, very subtle. Just going to put a little there. I'm going to come onto the paper here with a little bit, a couple spots. And you'll see why in a minute, because I think that'll help. And my patina is from Gilder's Wax Paste, so it's a different brand. And it's a very dry, you can kind of tell by looking at my tub here that it's all crumbly. But that's okay, it works. It works. I think I'm gonna stop there. And then I've got, this is a chipboard piece that I have painted. I used Metallique Nutmeg, and I just put a very light coat on it, and now I'm gonna do the same thing, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of patina to this in just a couple of spots, sort of on the leaves, the tips of the leaves especially. And I am going to drop that right on top right there. I think I'll come up actually just a tiny bit, get that more into the paper area here. And then what I think I'll do is I've got, hang on, I'm back. I've got this trim that is so fibers, and I just thought it might look kind of cool. This is from Crafty Me Shop on Facebook. If you look her up, Esme sells laces and trims, usually new ones, and I just got this in, and it is wonderful. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of this, if I can find my glue. I'm going to put a little bit of this fibrous trim down here. I have got a mess down here at the bottom. And I'm looking for there it is. Sorry, don't mean to reach over. And this then, I'm just gonna, so when I cut it, it sort of began to fall apart, of course, which is great, because that makes it more, it looks less like trim and more like fibers and more like trees or dirt. This is sitting in some dirt. Okay, what I need to do now is decide what I want to, well, actually first what I'm going to do is just a tiny bit of dry brushing. And this is a gold. And I want to put just a little bit of gold on here. And I've got a fairly stiff brush. Let's see, I usually use a paper towel. And I've just got a tiny, tiny bit on here. And I'm just going to come through and hit the tops of this. Although I do think I want to use a tiny bit of white. So let me get some, when I put white on, I usually use just gesso. So I'm just gonna drop a little bit of gesso on. My table is already so messy. A little bit of gesso won't hurt anything. All right, now what I'm gonna do, don't know if you can see me or not, but I'm just going to tap that off on a towel. And here I'm going to go a little bit more aggressive, because now on this I'm going to white gesso everything. Okay, now I think what I'll do, let's see, I'm looking at it at a weird angle. Oh yeah, that's fun. So now what I think I'm going to do is go back in and do a little bit of dry brushing with the yellow or the gold. And then, and I'm doing it just on the leaves. Now I'm going to finish this off with one more layer of coming back with the Bronze Age again, which was the original wax that I put on here. And I'm not necessarily trying to cover anything up, but I did get a little heavy. I did cover up more of it than I wanted to. And so now I'm going to come back in and add a little bit back in and just a few of the spots. That's the beauty of layers, is you can kind of just keep on going until you're happy with it. And so I'm just going to add some layers back in on my texture over here especially. Okay, so here's what I did. This one is done. I took a little piece of just some grungy linen left over with, you know, just, I think it was a hand towel or a napkin that I had just included in some tea dyeing bath. And so that's just, you know, a little tiny piece I pulled off. And then this isn't dry yet, so it's still moving a tiny bit. That's just a button glued on there. And then I've got a rusty paper clip up here at the top that I put a coat of glossy accents on to protect it and to keep the rust in there inside. And yeah, so I think this one is done. Lots of layers, lots of texture, color. If I can kind of turn that, you can see some of the color going on there. I wanted the edge to just look old and sort of grungy and icky. And then the flower or the sprig here looks like it's coming out of some earth, grass, dirt, I think, sort of. That was the idea anyway. So that is the first tag. And I did not, I have not put a back on this. And so I'll do the same thing where I'll cover this hole. But that one is done. I'll put a well, it'll be done as soon as I get a back on it. Same with this. I decided to add some glazing medium to the top of this button. It's still a little, no, it's dry. And I stippled it. By stipple, I mean, you know, kind of like you do a stencil. I just tapped on it with my brush with the glazing medium. And it gave it a nice effect. I think you can kind of see the stippling marks on there. But what really is cool that happened is it brought out some of the green patina that was going on that button and just brought it just to the surface. It was funny, my glazing medium brush had some green in it when I wiped it off. So true patina, very old button. That also protects it. So I feel better, but I really like the way that begins to pull those colors together. So that one is done as well, other than the back. Same thing. I'll put a back on it. I'm just waiting for this matte medium to dry in here. And I will do the same thing. I'll put a dab of matte medium in the back there in that hole, and then cover, put a backing on those of tea-dyed paper. So, but they're done. They're done. So this is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are tags 5 and 6. And these are the tags where I'm beginning to show you how you can just play with like lots of layers. Same thing. I use the same tag as the base, and I don't think, this one especially, I did a lot of inks and paints and things like that splattered all over this. And so you're really not seeing that background very much at all, but it's there. And it just was born out of using that tag as a base or as a starting point. So there you go. 2 more tags. We've got 2 more to do to get 8, but there's actually 2 more Wednesdays in March after this, because there's 5 Wednesdays in March. So we'll see what happens. One of the things that I haven't really done that I will play with, and I may only do 1 tag, during that week, just because it'll be a little more complicated, is folds and bins and, you know, activity, interactive types of things going on with the tags. So that'll be coming up as soon as I figure out what I want to do. And probably another mixed media with maybe some different mediums besides texture paste. This was Crackle Paste through a stencil. This was texture paste through a stencil. Two different stencils. Then this one just has some lace pieces and some like netting piece, a vintage button with some glazing medium on top, stippled on top. And then I've just stapled a grungy piece of sari silk up there and inked the edges. This one, Crackle Paste through the stencil. Then the tag ripped sort of right down the middle, or ripped the two edges off of it. A piece of chipboard with paints and paints and waxes and all of that kind of combined. And I even changed my mind. I started off with a burgundy, didn't like it, took it down, put another coat of black gesso on top of it, and then went back with the whatever color that was, the brass. I think it's a brass, and added some trim and some buttons and some rust and some grungy fabric up there for the top part. And that's it. That's it. They're done. So I will be back. I will clean my table, and I will be back for another episode next Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Bye.